All right, guys. So if you haven't met my cousin Ellie, this is Ellie. We went on a live last week and we chatted about what did we chat about? Can't remember now.
We chatted about me.
Okay. Yeah. Sweet. And she's back to talk more about her. So today we wanted to talk more about like mindset and habits, and then also like people who are struggling with staying accountable, working out from home, and then also working from home. So you're a business owner. You've been a business owner for 5 years. Yeah, and you're always sort of like you're in the gym 6 a.m. taking classes, had a set schedule for the day, like you'd work after the classes and stay there and do all the businessy stuff, so working in the business and working on the business. How has that changed now that the gym's closed, obviously, and you've had to sort of transition all your clients online?
Yeah, so I think the main thing with kind of working and there's two parts of it. Number one's habit, the second one's accountability. And it's going to be different for everyone what those habits are. It's going to be different to everyone how they respond to different types of accountability. So when I was just working in the gym, like I really had a set routine. It was down pat. You know, I'd like work the morning classes. Most often I'd work the morning classes. After that first morning class, I would set my day up and do journaling and mindset and figure out like what I was going to do for that day. So I had a set schedule. Basically go through that, train, and then usually I would spend the afternoon or evening going home and doing kind of more work if I needed to after training. Sometimes I would coach, it just depended on the day, but usually I'd have a set schedule. And very much like for accountability, I know that I'm what we call a questioner, and that means that I respond to internal expectations rather than external expectations. So if someone says to me, you should do this, I'll question why, and then I'll make my mind up. If I don't think it's a good idea, internally, I won't do it. If I think it's a good idea, I generally will. So that's how my kind of accountability system works. I'm quite lucky that I'm quite intrinsically motivated and I do have that internal accountability for most things, if I think it's a good idea or if I think it's worth it. Whereas most people will find that they need some kind of external accountability. So for example, in our gyms, we do accountability calls with our clients to make sure that they're on track, and all of them find that really, really helpful because they need that external I guess influence and expectation of them to do something to actually do it. So a good example is for most people, if they say, all right, I'm going to like get fit, I'm going to like get up tomorrow morning, I'm going to go and train. Because that's come internally, the likelihood of them getting up can be quite slim. It just depends on who you are, but it's slim for most people. Whereas if I come to you and I say, cool, you're coming to my gym at 6 a.m. tomorrow morning and I will see you there, I'll be disappointed in you if you don't turn up. Like that's really going to get people into the gym.
Guilt trip.
They're going to move. So I think those are the two parts to staying accountable and getting things done, is having that number one, a habit around things, and number two, like accountability. So to swing that back and answer your question, how has it changed? Obviously my routine has completely changed in the sense that we are now having to not necessarily run a day-to-day business. We're actually having to innovate and create and you know, provide a completely new service for people or for our women in the sense of online training, and make that, you know, an amazing service and product as much as our, you know, gym was. And so what I have to do on a day-to-day basis has changed a lot. But there's obviously a big external drive, being a pandemic and a recession, which is driving us to work a lot harder as well, I guess. So those are probably the two things that have changed the most.
Yeah, and so like day-to-day, you like, what does your day-to-day look like now? And like, are there principles that you apply from what you were doing before to what you are doing now that sort of help you day-to-day?
Yeah, so it's still a little bit sporadic. We're still trying to figure out I'm still trying to figure out what the best kind of flow is. The first kind of week that this happened, I spent pretty much every day from like kind of 7 a.m. at least till kind of 7 p.m. in the gym. And so the last 2 weeks I've spent a bit less time here. So I've been doing, because I felt like, because we do 2 classes in the evening, 1 in the afternoon. And I felt like doing them at the gym was probably appropriate. Whereas this week I've kind of moved some of them I do like in my house now.
Yeah.
So just trying to get out and, change things up, I think is important, but also finding what kind of works for me in terms of like, I don't really want to spend my whole day in an empty gym. And I do want to go home and see, my family or the people that I can see because of quarantine and have those conversations with people and stuff like that. So I think that's really, really important. In terms of what my day looks like, I come in, I generally will do the morning classes here. I come in, I do the classes. I do still do kind of mindset journaling. I think it's really important in this time to make sure that you're on top of that kind of thing, because it's very easy to let your mental health spiral fast. Like I said, the first week I was in a gym here by myself for the whole week. That was tough. Like, and I'm sure a lot of people feel it. Like, it's not like you can go to and meet your co-workers for a quick chat of coffee in between doing work, or, go down and get a coffee and you have a chat with your barista or whatever. Like, you don't have that kind of social interaction anymore. So it is like a challenge. You've got to try and make sure that you're staying on top of your mental health. And I found that kind of journaling and focusing on your mindset's really, really important.
Yeah, so what sort of things does that entail? Like, what do you do for mindset and journaling, like, specifically?
Cool. So there's a few different like people that I'll flip between depending on kind of how I'm feeling. So a really good resource is Sam Harris. He does like, if you want like just YouTube meditations, or he has a meditation app, which is really, really great. The other one is, of course, Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I do his priming exercises. I think they're really good just to have some sort of gratitude. Like, it's mainly focusing on like gratitude, creating good energy, and then like focus for the day, which I think is, really, really good. And then generally if I'm journaling, mainly my journaling isn't necessarily like, how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking. I generally have just like a mantra for the day. And then I will kind of figure out what are the top priorities I kind of need to get done today. Like, what are the things that I really want to do to move the business forward, and then kind of list them out and how I'm going to do them. It doesn't always work out that way, but if I can try and get a few of those important things done, then at least I would count that as kind of like a win for the day, and then I can figure it out for the next day.
Yeah, sweet. And so bringing that into like habits and things like that. So we talked a bit about, last week we filmed like a little video which we'll post about habit loops. So like going throughout your day and having little triggers that will sort of like prompt you to doing a certain habit. For example, I was speaking to a client this morning and she was saying like, I need to do my workout first thing in the morning, or like I'm having trouble like getting into the zone to work at home because, for example, I'm getting distracted. Like my mind's going, oh, I can do laundry, I can do this, I can do that. So what I sort of said to her was like creating habits and triggers. Like for me, I know that if I grab a coffee and I put my my noise cancelling headphones on, that's my like trigger to start working, and then I'm focused on my work for an hour and a half or whatever it is, and then that's like that time is dedicated to that. And then after I'm finished that, my reward for that is like ticking something off my list and I feel good about it and I feel productive. So doing that habit loop, which involves like sort of you've got your you've got the trigger, and then you've got a routine, which is like actually doing the behavior you want, and then the reward afterwards, which gives you that positive feedback loop that goes on as well. Do you sort of like use that sort of stuff to like do your mindset stuff as well? Because I find for me like meditation, mindset, journaling is the first thing that I will like brush aside. Like I know it's super important. Hi mum. Mum says hi.
There you go.
That's Ellie's auntie for anyone watching.
Yes.
So yeah, so for me, like for example, having my headphones, like my earphones beside my bed, like on the bedside table, alarm goes off, putting those in, doing like a 10-minute meditation or something first thing in the morning. If I don't do that, I'll leave it and I won't do it for the rest of the day. But I know like after that, it sets me up. So if I do my meditation, I know the next thing that I want to do is my journaling. So my journaling typically is literally writing like minimum 3 things that I can be grateful for every day, and like trying to make them different. Some things are the same because you know, I just want to continue on that sort of like giving gratitude for that, whatever that thing is. And yeah, and then, you know, that triggers like into the journaling, that triggers me to write my to-do list. And then I've got my to-do list, and then that's when, you know, walk, coffee, headphones on, work, tick those things off happens. And it sort of, it sets off like that chain of events. And so it's then like, we talk about being present and things like that, but like that sets off like that autopilot. Like you want to come back to being present, but like just having that set schedule, it's sort of, you don't have to focus so much on like, what am I going to do next? And like, let your mind take up thinking about the next thing, rather than like, you can focus on higher order things if that base is sort of set out for you for the day. So I think like scheduling while you're at home is super important. For me, like for the last couple of months, I guess, has sort of prepared me for this. Like traveling with Jordan, like we have like, we're always changing cities, we're always like on the move, but our like macro week cycle and also like our micro day sort of activities are basically the same. So it's like basically this, and then over the course of a week, it's like basically like we've got all these things, but things throughout the day are going to come and go, and like you have to sort of be prepared for them, and but not let them affect you too much like emotionally. Like if something comes in, like not getting like thrown off completely, but just being, yeah.
So there's something to be said for your habit loop, which you're talking about, and it being kind of subconscious. You know, they do tests with rats. A good example is they do these tests with rats, and they give them a maze. And the first time the rats do, they have to really think about getting through the maze and getting to their cheese or whatever they're feeding them. So they go through the maze, they're figuring it out, and it's the same maze each time. And they know they're going to get a reward at the end, and they know what the start of the maze looks like. They've got no other space to go, so they're going to go into the maze. And after however many times, they do it like 20 times. By the 20th time, they've got that route mapped out, and they don't have to think about it. They're just in that habit flow. It's kind of similar to when you're like driving a car and you like are going on a route that you usually go on, and you wake up and you're like, oh shit, I'm there. I'm there. I'd lucked out. Like that's you on a habit loop because you're not consciously thinking about it. Your subconscious is taking over. And what's actually happening in your brain at that time, as they've demonstrated through these rats, is that you have a lower amount of activity in your brain. And that's huge for us because our big brains are a massive drain. They're a huge energy drain. And back in the day, this would have been an excellent survival tactic because you wouldn't have had to spend so much energy wasted on the habits that you would have done continuously.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, I guess, the background behind why you have a habit loop and why it goes into your subconscious and you do it automatically. So you want to try and hijack almost that kind of science so that you can do the things that you want to do to be productive and reach goals, and you don't have to think about it. So if we take like exercising, for example, your trigger might be having your shoes and clothes that you're gonna wear for the next day at the door. Your alarm clock goes off. You get up, you get dressed, and you're on a roll. and that's your habit loop. You walk out the door, you're into the gym, you get coached, and then off you go. And that really depends on how you're going to set it up, and you know that you can put thought into that, but generally having that type of like a trigger, the loop, and then some kind of reward. So for exercise, it might be like the endorphins, or you might go get a coffee and read the paper afterwards, whatever it is. Like set yourself up with that reward for sure.
Yeah, awesome. Come on. Anything else to add? Anything else you wanted to talk about?
The other thing I was thinking about was kind of bad habits. So, for example, in the morning, I have a bad habit of if I get on my phone, I'm gone. Like, I'm going to spend hours just scrolling and on Facebook. I find it really, really difficult to pull myself out of that. So I know that I just like have to sit down and kind of what you do, you've got that trigger of like earphones on. And I find music or some sort of like, you know, some sort of visual or oral stimulation, so audio stimulation is really, 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 really great because you have like, it's a strong trigger. So a good example is my partner and I, we will put like audio books on at night, and within like 5 minutes we're asleep because we know that like the audio book, after the audio book comes sleep, and now our brains associate the sound of that with going to sleep. So it's really easy for us to go to sleep. So same with your earphones. As soon as you put those earphones on, your mind is primed to be like, oh, I've got to go do this now, and it will automatically do it. So you want to try and find, so I know that as soon as I get on my phone, like I'll be in like a really deep like problem.
Yeah,
like,
in a rabbit hole.
I'm not going to get any work done in this time. So it's a lot better for me if I jump on and do like a meditation or make my coffee or like whatever it is. If I go over and make my coffee in the morning, like I know I'm onto a good morning. If I go and like do anything else on my phone, like it's not going to be a good morning. So I know I just have to like really try and walk to the right rather than the left, and I'm fine.
Yeah, and I think that's a massive like self-awareness thing as well, and what works for one person may not necessarily work for another, so it's like finding out what sort of works for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that might be as simple as you need like someone to hold you accountable. Like if you know you need accountability around things, like find someone to hold you accountable to it. Pay someone. It doesn't really like matter what it is. You just need to figure out how to have that accountability. If you know that like internally you can like be accountable to yourself, but for example you're finding you're procrastinating a lot, like you have to figure out why you're procrastinating. You know, procrastination is just because you don't want to face the challenge generally, like you're gonna or you don't want to face the hard task. So and generally you find like, oh, I just did the task and it was fine, like I thought it was gonna be like a challenge, I thought it was gonna be hard, and I did it in like 10 minutes and I can't believe I've put it off for so long. So you know, facing
like
that,
my mobility book that I released yesterday, I wrote that about 2 years ago, and I just left it and like just procrastinated on it because like the next step was just to like put it all together and like take the photos, and like that's all I needed to do. It took me an hour to take the photos, and then I just sent it off to someone, they put it together, and it was like, well fuck, but like obviously like now I know, and you know, maybe it's a good time to release it. Like I said, like everyone's at home and everyone's like has the time now to actually do it. So that could have been a blessing in disguise, but just the procrastination of that, like
but that's a learning curve as well, right? So now you kind of know what you like. I'm the same. I find like filming videos and doing like content stuff, like getting ready for that is a challenge, and it's taken quite a while for me to get better at like, all right, I just need to like, you know, set the camera up and start moving, and then I'm fine. Like if I don't go near the camera, like there's no way I'm getting it done. So I want to make sure that, you know, I set myself up for success and have that awareness to know that like taking action's the most important thing in that instance. Taking action to like, even if it's crap, like just film it and get into the habit of filming or creating content, writing as well. Because at the end of the day, like you want to provide value for people and you want to help people. and you're your own worst enemy in stopping yourself from doing that. So it's important to like try and overcome that and make sure that you can push forward and get what you want to say out, because otherwise someone else is going to do it. So why not you?
Yeah. I found that like that sort of stuff, like the filming stuff and getting ready for it, like I hated that as well. And then it's like you do it, it takes maybe like 10-20 minutes and I film like 2 things, and then now I have all this content for like weeks, and it's like, well, that was productive. Like
Yeah, it's good.
but it's all definitely a learning curve, I think. Okay.
Yeah, I guess at the end of the day, the main thing is making sure that you take action. That's like what's going to drive you forward at the end of the day.
Yep. Sweet. All right. We'll leave it there.
Have a good day. We'll see you later.
Yeah, see ya.
Bye.